The room is too quiet. Not the peaceful kind of quiet people talk about in movies. No, this quiet feels heavy. Like the air itself forgot how to move. A small machine beside the bed keeps repeating the same thin sound. Beep! Pause. Beep! The curtains are half closed, even though the sun is already high outside. A slice of pale light slips through the fabric and lands on the floor, cutting the room into two colors, soft gray and tired white. On the bedside table there is a phone. It lights up, then goes dark again. No one touches it. Another beep from the monitor. Somewhere down the hallway, a trolley rolls past. The metal wheels rattle for a moment, then disappear again into that strange hospital silence that always feels too big for human voices. Someone left a glass of water on the table. The water hasn't moved in hours. And on the bed, barely noticeable under the thin blanket, a hand. The fingers are still. Only after several minutes does someone whisper the name, Baby Cele. Not loudly, almost like the name itself might break something fragile in the room. For decades that name carried noise, cameras flashing, television studios buzzing, audiences laughing at the characters she brought to life. A woman who could make an entire room burst into laughter with just one line. Now the name sits quietly in the air. Baby Cele. A nurse walks in softly. The way nurses do when they already know the news inside the room is heavier than their footsteps. She checks the monitor, glances at the chart clipped to the bed. 3 days. That's what the doctor said. Not a week, not a month, 3. Someone outside the door is crying, but very quietly. The kind of crying people try to hide when hospitals are involved. Inside the room, nothing dramatic happens. No shouting, no desperate speeches. Just breathing. Slow. Uneven. Cancer has a strange way of changing time. Minutes stretch like hours, and sometimes an entire afternoon disappears without anyone noticing. The clock on the wall keeps moving, but no one believes it anymore. Another phone notification lights the table. Messages. Friends. Colleagues. People who heard whispers already spreading through the entertainment world. Is it true? Please tell me she's okay. We are praying. No one replies. Because what exactly would they say? The doctor came earlier in the morning. He spoke carefully, choosing words like someone walking across thin ice. Stage 4. Spread too far. Very little time. He didn't look directly at the bed when he said it. Now the hallway outside the room feels crowded, even though there are only a few people there. Family members sitting on plastic chairs, someone holding a jacket they forgot to wear, someone staring at the floor as if the tiles might suddenly explain everything. Inside the room, the monitor keeps speaking its small language. Beep, pause, beep. Baby Cele's face looks different now. Not unrecognizable, but quieter somehow, like the energy that once filled television screens has slowly stepped out of the room. A nurse adjusts the blanket. Her hand hesitates for a moment. She recognizes the face. Of course she does. Everyone in South Africa does. But recognition means nothing here. In hospitals, fame dissolves quickly. It becomes just another name on a chart, another patient number, another quiet battle against something the body cannot outrun. Outside, the sky is bright. Traffic moves. People buy coffee. Somewhere, a television is probably replaying one of her old performances. The same scenes that once made audiences laugh so hard they had to wipe tears from their eyes. But here, inside this small room, laughter feels like a memory from another lifetime. A man standing near the window whispers to no one in particular. 3 days. He says it again, like repeating the number might somehow stretch it. 3 days. The words refuse to settle. They float around the room, bumping softly against the walls, against the machines, against the silence. Baby Cele once filled entire stages with life. Now the room holds only the sound of breathing and the quiet rhythm of a heart being measured. Beep, pause, beep, And somewhere in the hallway, a phone begins to ring again. The doctor didn't say it immediately. He stood beside the bed longer than necessary, flipping through the medical chart, even though everyone in the room already knew he had read every page before walking in. The air felt different when doctors walked in like that. Too careful, too quiet. Outside the window, a bird landed on the railing for a moment, then flew away. No one noticed. The doctor cleared his throat. No long speech, no dramatic preparation. Just a sentence that dropped into the room like something heavy falling onto a wooden floor. We think she may only have about 3 days. And then nothing. No explanation followed. No medical lecture. No complicated terminology. Just that number. 3. The word floated in the room like smoke that refused to disappear. Someone near the door stopped breathing for a moment. Another person blinked twice, as if the sentence had arrived in the wrong language. 3 days. Not 3 months. Not even 3 weeks. 3. The doctor looked down at the chart again. Perhaps it was easier than looking at the faces in the room. The monitor beside the bed kept doing its job. Beep. Pause. Beep! For a moment it felt almost rude that the machine continued so calmly, as if nothing extraordinary had just been said. 3 days. The man near the window rubbed his hands together slowly. It wasn't cold in the room, but his fingers kept moving anyway. Across the bed, someone whispered, "That's not possible." Not loudly, just a quiet protest thrown into the air. The doctor didn't argue. He didn't confirm it again either. He simply adjusted the pen in his pocket and nodded once. The kind of small nod that doctors learn over years of delivering news no one wants. And then he stepped back. Silence moved in immediately after he stopped speaking. It settled on the chairs, on the curtain, on the glass of water that still sat untouched beside the bed. 3 days. The words repeated themselves inside everyone's head in slightly different ways. 72 hours. 4,320 minutes. But nobody said those numbers out loud. The phone on the table lit up again. Another message. Then another. News spreads fast when it concerns someone people feel like they have known for years, even if they only knew her through a television screen. Baby Cele, the name had once meant energy, movement, laughter that echoed across living rooms late at night. Now the name sat quietly beside a number. 3 days. A woman sitting near the wall pressed both hands over her mouth. Not crying yet, just holding something inside that was trying very hard to escape. The doctor walked toward the door. Halfway there he paused. Sometimes doctors add something hopeful at the end. A small sentence like a bandage placed gently over a wound. "We'll keep her comfortable." That was all he said. Then he left. The door closed softly behind him. For several seconds, nobody moved, not even the nurse. Everyone remained exactly where they were, like actors frozen on a stage after someone forgot the next line of the script. The machine spoke again. Beep! Pause. Beep. Someone finally sat down slowly, the plastic chair making a soft creaking sound under the weight. 3 days. It sounded unreal when spoken inside the mind, like a number that belonged to another person's story. But the bed was real. The thin blanket was real. And the woman lying there, the woman who had once filled studios with laughter, was very real. Baby Cele's breathing shifted slightly. Not dramatic, just a small change. The kind of change nurses notice immediately, but families usually miss. The nurse stepped forward and adjusted one of the tubes with careful fingers. Her face stayed professional. But inside she had already counted the number 2. 3 days. In the hallway outside, someone's footsteps approached, then stopped near the door. Whispers. A question asked quietly. "Is it true?" No one answered. Inside the room, the clock continued its slow movement around the wall. Minutes passing. Time suddenly feeling much louder than before. The phone on the table vibrated softly against the wood. Another message arrived. Another light. Another reminder that somewhere outside this room, the world was beginning to hear the same sentence that had just fallen here like a stone. 3 days. Inside the room, nobody dared to say it again. But everyone was listening to it, over and over, between every breath. between every beep of the monitor, as if the number itself had become another machine quietly running beside the bed. The hospital corridor remains quiet. Too quiet. The kind of silence that makes even a plastic chair sound loud when someone shifts their weight. Fluorescent lights hum faintly above the ceiling panels. A nurse walks past slowly, her shoes barely making a sound on the polished floor. Inside the room, nothing has changed. The monitor still breathes in its mechanical rhythm. Beep, pause, beep. Baby Cele lies beneath the thin hospital blanket, the lines of the machines tracing quiet patterns around her body like fragile threads. But outside the hospital walls, the world refuses to slow down. Traffic lights blink red, yellow, green. Cars move through intersections. Taxi drivers lean on their horns. Somewhere, a street vendor is laughing loudly with a customer about something completely unrelated to life or death. The city keeps moving, because cities always do. A young man sits in a small apartment several kilometers away, scrolling through his phone while the television runs quietly in the background. On the screen, a familiar face appears. Bright, energetic, unmistakable. Baby Cele. A scene from one of her old television roles plays. She delivers a line that once made audiences laugh across the country. The young man smiles without realizing it. He has seen this episode before. Thousands of people have. The moment feels ordinary, until his phone vibrates. A notification. A short message from a friend. Did you hear about Baby Cele? He pauses. Scrolls. Another message appears. Then another. Within minutes, the internet begins to shift in that strange way it does when something important is spreading quietly through thousands of screens. Someone posts a rumor. Another person asks if it's true. A fan account shares an old photo from years ago. Baby Cele standing under bright studio lights, smiling wide, arms open, as if greeting the entire world. The caption reads, "Please tell me this isn't real." Back in the hospital room, no one sees these messages. The phone on the bedside table lights up again. And again. Each vibration moves the glass of water slightly, making a tiny ripple across the surface. No one touches the phone. No one checks the screen. Because inside the room, time has become something else entirely. Slower. Heavier. More fragile. Outside, the city glows. Street lights turn on as evening begins to settle over buildings and highways. Restaurants fill with voices and clinking glasses. A couple walks past a television displayed in a shop window. The screen shows another scene. Baby Cele again. Older viewers recognize the show immediately. One of the roles that made her a household name, the character who made people laugh after long workdays. The couple slows down. The woman says quietly, "I used to watch this with my mother." Her partner nods. Neither of them knows what is happening in the hospital at that exact moment. Across social media, the rumor grows legs. A journalist sends a cautious message to a colleague. "Have you heard anything about Baby Cele?" Another reporter begins typing, but deletes the message. No confirmation yet. Still, the name is appearing everywhere now. Baby Cele. Inside the hospital room, the lights remain dim. The curtain moves slightly as air from the ventilation system passes through. Someone near the wall finally picks up the phone from the bedside table. The screen lights the person's face. Hundreds of notifications. Messages. Missed calls. Fans asking questions. Friends asking the same thing again and again. Is she okay? The person holding the phone doesn't reply. Just scrolls slowly through the messages, as if reading them might somehow change the number that still echoes in everyone's mind. 3 days. Outside the hospital, a group of university students sits in a cafe. One of them suddenly looks up from her phone. "Oh my God," she whispers. The others lean closer. "Baby Cele. People are saying she's very sick." One student immediately opens a video platform. Within seconds, an old interview appears. Baby Cele laughing. Talking about acting. Talking about how much she loved bringing characters to life. The cafe grows quieter around their table. Back in the hospital room, the machine continues its soft conversation with the silence. Beep. Pause. Beep. Someone adjusts the blanket again. Someone else stares at the window, where the last light of the evening fades slowly behind distant buildings. The world outside keeps moving forward. Cars, conversations, televisions, scrolling screens. But inside this small hospital room, time feels suspended, as if everything here is waiting. Waiting for something no one is brave enough to name. The room doesn't look dramatic. That is the strange thing about hospital rooms. They never look like the stories happening inside them. A small chair stands near the window. Someone has placed a gray shawl over the back of it. It slipped slightly earlier, and now one corner touches the floor. No one notices. The air conditioner hums softly above the door. On the wall, there is a clock that seems louder than it should be. The second hand moves with small, determined clicks that echo faintly in the quiet. Click, click, click. Near the bed, on the small table beside the phone, lies a photograph. The frame is simple. Inside it, a younger Baby Cele stands with two family members, smiling widely. The photo was taken outdoors. You can tell from the sunlight in their hair and the trees behind them. The kind of photo someone chooses not because it is perfect, but because it feels warm. The person who placed the photo there earlier keeps glancing at it now and then, as if comparing the image in the frame with the quiet figure lying in the bed. The nurse returns again. She moves slowly, almost automatically now, adjusting a tube, checking the monitor, writing a number down on the chart. Her face is calm, but her eyes pause for a second longer than usual when she looks at Baby Cele. Not the look of someone observing a celebrity, just the look of someone who understands how fragile a moment can be. Across the room, someone sits with both hands folded together. The fingers tremble slightly. It's not obvious at first. Only when the person reaches for the glass of water does the shaking become visible. The glass clinks softly against the table before it is set down again. No one comments. People in rooms like this often pretend not to notice small tremors. The shawl on the chair still hangs there, half slipping. Someone finally picks it up and drapes it over their shoulders. The fabric smells faintly like perfume. For a moment, the person holding it closes their eyes, perhaps remembering when the shawl was last worn somewhere far away from this room. A dinner, a family gathering, a warm evening where no one was counting hours. Baby Cele's hand rests outside the blanket. Not fully open, not fully closed, just resting. Every now and then, the fingers move slightly, almost like someone responding to a distant thought. The nurse notices. She gently adjusts the blanket again, tucking the edge beneath the arm so the hand stays warm. No one says anything. The small photograph on the table catches a bit of the hallway light when the door opens briefly. The image glows for a second before the door closes again. The room returns to its soft dimness. Someone sitting near the foot of the bed finally leans forward. Carefully, as if approaching something sacred, they study Baby Cele's face quietly. There are small details there that strangers would never notice. The faint line near her eyebrow, the way one corner of her mouth curves slightly, even in rest. Details that belong to someone who has known her for years. Outside the room, footsteps pass again. A nurse whispers something to another staff member. A trolley moves past the door. Inside the room, the silence stretches again. The phone on the table vibrates softly. The photograph shakes slightly in its frame from the movement. Baby Cele's fingers shift again. Just a small motion. The person sitting closest to the bed immediately leans closer. Baby. The word barely leaves their lips. No response, just breathing. Slow, uneven. The nurse watches from near the monitor. Her eyes move from the numbers on the screen to the patient, then back again. Her expression changes for just a moment. A flicker of something human behind the professional calm. Then she writes another note on the chart. The shawl slips again from the person's shoulders and falls halfway down their arm. They don't fix it this time. The photograph on the table reflects another small flash of light from the hallway. In the picture, Baby Cele is laughing. Wide, alive. The room itself remains quiet. but the small details inside it. The shawl, the trembling hand, the watchful eyes of the nurse, the photograph that keeps catching the light, feel like tiny stories scattered around the bed. Stories that say far more than any medical report ever could. And somewhere between the quiet breathing and the soft hum of machines, those details continue to exist in the dim hospital light. Waiting. For a while, nothing moves in the room except the thin line on the heart monitor. Beep. Pause. Beep. The photograph on the table catches the light again. The smiling version of Baby Cele in that frame almost feels like someone else entirely. Louder, brighter, full of motion. And strangely, that image pulls the mind somewhere far away from the hospital. Not intentionally. Memories rarely arrive when invited. They simply appear. A theater. Years ago. Hot lights hanging from the ceiling. The kind that made actors sweat under their costumes while pretending everything was effortless. Behind the stage curtain, someone whispered the final countdown. 30 seconds. The curtain moved slightly as people shifted behind it. The audience on the other side of the red fabric murmured with anticipation. And there she was, Baby Cele, standing just behind the curtain with a script folded in her hand, even though she no longer needed to read it. Someone from the crew leaned toward her and joked quietly, "You're about to steal the whole show again?" She laughed. That same open laugh the country would later recognize everywhere. Then the curtain opened. For a second, the stage lights made it impossible to see the audience clearly. Just a blur of faces and shadows. But when she delivered the first line, the reaction came instantly. Laughter. Real laughter. The kind that rolls through a room like warm wind. Applause followed before the scene had even finished. Back in the hospital room, the same woman lies still beneath a thin blanket. The machine continues its steady rhythm. Beep. Pause. Beep. A nurse adjusts the IV stand. The metal pole squeaks slightly as it moves. The sound echoes strangely in the quiet room. Somewhere inside someone's mind, another memory slips in without warning. A film set. Early morning fog drifting across an outdoor location while cameras were being positioned. Crew members carrying cables across damp grass. Someone shouting for quiet before the take. Baby Cele stood near the camera, wrapped in a coat between scenes. One of the younger actors looked nervous, rehearsing his lines again and again. She noticed, walked over, took the script gently from his hands. "Relax," she said with a smile. "If you forget the line, we'll pretend it was part of the story." The young actor laughed, the tension leaving his shoulders. Minutes later, the camera rolled. And Baby Cele delivered a scene so natural that the director didn't say, "cut," for several seconds after the moment ended. No one moved. Even the crew stayed quiet. Back in the hospital room, the same silence returns again. But it feels different now. Not empty. More like something filled with invisible echoes. The photograph on the table seems almost brighter than before. Someone sitting near the bed glances at it again, perhaps remembering another moment. A television studio. Bright lights. A crowd of audience members clapping in rhythm while the host introduced her name. "Please welcome Baby Cele." The applause was loud. Not polite applause. Real applause. The kind that rises from people who already know they are about to enjoy themselves. She walked onto the stage smiling, waving slightly as if greeting old friends. That moment, just a few seconds, stayed in many people's minds for years. Now the hospital room holds only the faint hum of machines. The nurse checks the monitor again. The numbers change slowly. Outside the door, someone whispers in the hallway. Inside the room, the photograph still shows that laughing face. And for a moment, it almost feels like the sound of distant applause might still exist somewhere, far away from the quiet bed where Baby Cele now rests. The hallway outside the room is no longer empty. Not crowded, but different. People arrive quietly, one by one, as if drawn here by something invisible. Some sit on the plastic chairs along the wall. Others stand near the window at the end of the corridor, pretending to look outside even though the night sky offers nothing new to see. Inside the room, Baby Cele still rests under the dim light. The monitor continues its calm conversation with the silence. Beep. Pause. Beep. Near the foot of the bed, one of her children sits on the small chair that seems slightly too low for an adult. Both hands are wrapped around a phone that hasn't been unlocked for several minutes. The screen lights up. Another message. Another call. The phone vibrates again, but the person holding it does nothing, just stares at the floor. After a while, a quiet sentence escapes almost accidentally. She was supposed to come home next week. No one answers. Across the room, someone else wipes their eyes quickly with the back of their hand, trying not to make it obvious. The door opens gently. Another visitor steps in, a man in his late 50s, shoulders slightly hunched, eyes already red before he even looks toward the bed. For a moment, he doesn't move. Then he whispers, "Baby." His voice breaks halfway through the word. He walks closer slowly. Some of the people in the room recognize him immediately. An old colleague, someone who shared stages and cameras with her for years. He stops beside the bed and studies her face for a long moment. Then he shakes his head slightly, almost in disbelief. "I still remember your first day on set," he murmurs. No one asks him to explain. He continues anyway, speaking softly as if the memory itself might be fragile. "You were nervous, but pretending not to be." A small breath of laughter escapes him. "You walked onto the set like you had been there your whole life." He pauses, then adds quietly, "I never thought the day would come like this." The sentence fades before it fully finishes. Near the door, another visitor stands silently. A younger woman holding a small bouquet of white flowers she probably bought from the hospital entrance. She doesn't step closer yet, just watches. Her eyes move between the woman on the bed and the photograph on the table. Finally she speaks, but mostly to herself. "My mother loved her shows." No one in the room knows the young woman. She isn't family. She isn't part of the television industry either. Just a fan. Someone who grew up watching Baby Cele's characters on television while sitting beside her mother in the living room. She places the flowers gently on the small table next to the photograph. The petals brush lightly against the frame. "I came because," she begins, then stops. Some explanations feel unnecessary inside hospital rooms. Across the bed, the child who had been staring at their phone finally looks up. Their voice is quiet, almost careful. "She always said the audience felt like family." The fan nods slowly. Another silence spreads across the room, but it no longer feels empty. It feels full of people remembering different versions of the same woman. A co-star who once watched her command an entire stage. A child who remembers late-night rehearsals and scripts spread across the kitchen table. A stranger who grew up laughing at characters on a screen. Outside the room, more footsteps appear in the hallway. Someone whispers her name, "Baby Cele." Inside the room, the nurse glances toward the monitor again. Beep. Pause. Beep. The fan steps back toward the door, wiping her eyes quickly before anyone notices. Before leaving, she looks once more toward the bed. Then she says quietly, "Thank you for all the laughter." No one responds, but several people lower their heads slightly, as if the words belong to all of them. Near the window, the old colleague finally sits down heavily in the chair. He stares at the floor for a long time. Then he says something almost too soft to hear. "Stages are strange places," he murmurs. "They feel permanent when you're standing on them." He looks toward the bed again. But nothing stays forever. The machine beside Baby Cele continues its patient rhythm. Beep. Pause. Beep. And around the bed, the small group of people, family, friends, strangers, remain there together in the dim hospital light, each holding their own quiet memory of the woman whose name has traveled so far beyond this room. The night deepens quietly around the hospital. Inside the room, the light above the bed has been dimmed slightly. It casts a soft yellow glow across the walls, making everything look slower, softer, almost unreal. The machine continues its quiet rhythm. Beep, pause, beep. The flowers the young fan brought now sit beside the photograph. A few petals have already begun to curl slightly at the edges under the dry hospital air. No one moves for a long time. Some people sit. Some stand. Some simply watch the rise and fall of Baby Cele's breathing as if the movement itself holds an answer no one has asked yet. The nurse enters again. Not the same nurse from earlier. This one is younger. Her hair pulled back tightly. Her expression calm but slightly curious. The way someone looks when stepping into a room already heavy with emotion. She checks the monitor, adjusts the blanket, writes something on the chart. But as she finishes, she pauses. Her eyes linger on Baby Cele's face for a moment longer than necessary. Then she glances toward the older nurse standing quietly near the doorway. The younger nurse lowers her voice, almost a whisper. "I heard something earlier." The older nurse looks at her. Doesn't ask what. The younger nurse hesitates, then speaks again, even softer this time. "They said, before she was brought here." She kept repeating something. The people sitting near the bed don't react immediately. The words drift slowly through the room like dust in a beam of light. "What did she say?" someone finally asks. The younger nurse shakes her head slightly. "I don't know exactly." She pauses, then adds quietly, "But one of the paramedics mentioned she kept saying there was something she still needed to tell someone." The room grows still again, not the quiet of sadness, a different kind of quiet. The kind that appears when a question suddenly enters the air. Someone sitting near the foot of the bed looks up slowly. "Tell who?" No one answers. The younger nurse shrugs gently, already regretting that she said anything at all. "I'm not sure," she murmurs. She was weak. The words weren't very clear. Across the bed, the old colleague lifts his head slightly. His voice comes out hoarse. She always had secrets. A faint smile crosses his face. Actors do. He studies Baby Cele's face again, searching for something that might still be hidden there. For years, people believed they knew everything about her. Her roles, her laughter, her interviews. But now, in the quiet hospital room, that simple sentence begins to echo softly in everyone's mind. There was something she still needed to say. The flowers on the table shift slightly when the air conditioner turns on again. The photograph tilts a little against the frame. Baby Cele's fingers move again, just slightly, almost like someone responding to a distant voice. The nurse notices immediately. She leans forward gently. "Baby?" she whispers. No response, just breathing, slow, uneven. But the movement of her fingers lingers in the room, like a small signal no one fully understands. Near the window, one of the family members suddenly stands up, walks slowly toward the bed, studies her face carefully, as if trying to read something between the lines of silence. "What did she want to say?" the person murmurs. Not really asking anyone, more like asking the room itself. The younger nurse shifts uncomfortably. "I'm sorry," she says quietly. "That's all I heard." Outside the door, a faint sound of footsteps passes again. Somewhere down the hallway, a phone rings. Inside the room, the machine continues speaking its calm, mechanical language. Beep. Pause. Beep. The old colleague leans back in his chair, staring at the ceiling now. "She always knew how to leave people curious," he says softly. Even off stage. No one laughs, but several people glance again toward the woman lying quietly in the bed, as if wondering whether that unfinished sentence, whatever it was, might still be waiting somewhere between her thoughts and the silence of the room. The photograph beside the flowers catches another flicker of light. In it, Baby Cele is smiling widely, almost as if she knows something the room does not. And for a moment, that small mystery hangs in the hospital air, unanswered. Night settles slowly over the city. Not suddenly, just a quiet fading of colors outside the hospital windows. The last streaks of orange disappear behind distant buildings, leaving the sky a deep blue that gradually turns darker. Johannesburg keeps moving. Cars slide through wet streets. Headlights stretch across the pavement like long white lines. Somewhere in the distance, a bus exhales its brakes and pulls away from a stop. A thin rain begins to fall. Not heavy, just small drops tapping softly against the glass panels of the hospital. Inside the building, the lights stay bright. Hallway lamps glow above polished floors. Nurses move quietly between rooms, their footsteps softened by rubber soles. A trolley rolls past once, the metal wheels echoing faintly before disappearing around a corner. Outside one particular door, the corridor feels unusually still. Room 417. The door remains closed. Through the narrow window in the center of the door, the light inside spills into the hallway, pale and steady. Inside the room, the air feels warmer than the corridor. The machines continue their quiet work. Beep, pause, beep. The monitor screen glows green against the dim light. The thin blanket on the bed rises slightly, then settles again. Near the window, one chair sits empty now. Someone left it there earlier, angled slightly toward the bed, as if its occupant had only stepped away for a moment. The gray shawl still hangs loosely over the backrest. One corner brushes the floor. On the bedside table, the glass of water remains untouched. The surface reflects a small square of light from the ceiling lamp above. Beside it lies the phone. The screen lights up briefly again. A notification appears. Then another. The device vibrates softly against the wood before the screen fades back to black. Next to the phone sits the photograph. The frame has shifted slightly since earlier in the evening. It now leans gently against the flowers someone placed beside it. In the photograph, Baby Cele is laughing. The picture must have been taken years ago. Her hair caught by sunlight. Her head tilted slightly as if someone had just said something funny. The laughter in the photograph feels loud, but the room itself remains quiet. The younger nurse steps in briefly to check the monitor. Her pen scratches lightly against the chart. She adjusts the blanket, glances once at the photograph, then quietly steps back out of the room again. The door closes with a soft click. Back in the hallway, the lights continue humming overhead. Rain touches the windows again. Inside the room, the machine continues its steady rhythm. Beep! Pause. Beep. The flowers on the table shift slightly when the ventilation system turns on. A single petal falls gently onto the wooden surface beside the frame. The clock on the wall moves forward, second by second. No one speaks. Outside the hospital, the city glows under the light rain. Streetlights reflect across wet roads. In apartments across the city, televisions flicker in living rooms where old episodes still play quietly. Laughter from the screen, echoes of a voice people recognize. But here, inside this room, the light stays dim and steady. The chair remains empty. The shawl rests where it slipped. The photograph continues, catching small reflections from the lamp. And beside the bed, the monitor keeps speaking its quiet mechanical language into the night. Beep. Pause. Beep. On the small table, the old photograph of Baby Cele remains there. Still smiling, still leaning gently against the flowers.